Rain hammered the streets of Chicago on that November evening, turning Michigan Avenue into a river of brake lights and umbrellas. Maya Chen stood at her post outside the Grand Lux Hotel, her discount raincoat doing little against the wind that cut through the fabric like knives. She'd been working double shifts for 3 weeks straight, security guard by day, cleaning crew by night, and exhaustion sat heavy in her bones. But rent was due in 5 days, and her mother's medication didn't pay for itself. She'd never imagined that one split-second decision would reveal a truth that would shatter everything she thought she knew about her own life. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment below telling us which city you're watching from. Now, let's begin. Maya checked her watch, 7:47 p.m. 15 more minutes until her shift at the hotel ended, then she'd rush to her cleaning job across town. At 26 years old, she sometimes felt twice that age. The mirror showed dark circles that no amount of concealer could hide, and her uniform hung looser than it had 6 months ago. But she was alive, she was working, and that had to be enough. The hotel's revolving doors spun, and Maya straightened automatically, her hand moving to the radio at her hip. She'd learned to read people in this job. The tourists fumbling with their phones, the business travelers moving with purpose, the occasional troublemaker she'd have to redirect. This man, though, was different. He moved like someone accustomed to people stepping aside. Tall, maybe 6'1", wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Maya made in 3 months. His dark hair was styled perfectly despite the rain, and even from 20 feet away she could see the cut of someone who'd never worried about money a day in his life. Mid-30s, she guessed, with the kind of sharp, angular features that belonged on magazine covers. 2 security personnel flanked him. Private detail, not hotel staff. Maya recognized the type. This wasn't just wealth. This was power. The man paused under the awning, one of his bodyguards immediately producing an umbrella. He was on his phone, speaking in what sounded like Korean, his voice carrying authority even in a language Maya didn't understand. Something about a merger, numbers that made her head spin. Billions, maybe. Maya moved back, giving the entourage space. She'd learned early that people like this didn't notice people like her. She was part of the scenery, as invisible as the doorman or the valet. That was fine. Easier that way. The man ended his call, his expression unreadable. One of his bodyguards leaned in, pointing toward a black Mercedes idling at the curb. The man nodded, took a step forward, and that's when Maya saw it. The delivery truck came around the corner too fast, its brakes screaming on the wet pavement. The driver's face was visible through the windshield, eyes wide with panic as he fought for control. The truck was hydroplaning, sliding sideways, and its trajectory was going to take it straight into the sidewalk. Straight into the man in the expensive suit who was looking at his phone, completely unaware. Maya didn't think. Thinking would have meant hesitation, and hesitation would have meant death. She launched herself forward, her body slamming into the man's with enough force to send them both sprawling. They hit the ground hard, Maya taking most of the impact as they rolled. She felt something crack, her wrist maybe, but adrenaline dulled the pain to a distant throb. The truck's bumper missed them by inches, so close Maya felt the rush of air against her face. The vehicle mounted the curb where the man had been standing, plowed into a newspaper stand, and finally shuddered to a stop against a light pole. Metal shrieked, glass shattered. Someone screamed. For 3 heartbeats, there was only chaos. Then the world snapped back into motion. The man beneath Maya was breathing hard, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His eyes, dark brown, intense, locked onto hers with an expression she couldn't quite read. Shock, maybe. Or something else. "Are you insane?" he demanded, his English perfect but carrying a slight accent. "You could have been killed." Maya pushed herself up, her left wrist screaming in protest. "So could you," she managed, her voice shakier than she'd like. "The truck." "I saw." His tone softened slightly. He sat up, brushing debris from his suit. One of his bodyguards was already there, pulling him to his feet with practiced efficiency. The other was barking into a radio, calling for backup, for police, for God knew what else. Maya stayed on the ground, suddenly aware of how much she was shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a bone-deep tremor that made her teeth chatter. Her wrist was definitely broken. She could see it swelling already, angry and misshapen. "Miss? Miss, are you hurt?" A hotel manager was crouching beside her now, his face pale with horror at what had almost happened on his watch. "Don't move. We've called an ambulance." "I'm fine," Maya lied, trying to stand. Her legs didn't cooperate. The world tilted sideways, and she would have fallen if strong hands hadn't caught her. The man in the suit. He was supporting her weight like she weighed nothing, his grip firm but careful. This close she could smell his cologne, expensive, subtle, woodsy. This close she could see that his eyes weren't just brown but had flecks of amber, and they were studying her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "You saved my life," he said quietly, and there was something in his voice that made Maya look up. Why? It was such a strange question that for a moment, Maya forgot about her wrist, her exhaustion, the crowd gathering around the accident scene. "Because you were about to get hit by a truck," she said simply. "Did you want me to let that happen?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. Most people would have run the other way. "I'm not most people," Maya replied, and then the world did tilt sideways for real this time, and everything went dark. She woke up in the back of an ambulance, the taste of copper in her mouth and someone pressing an oxygen mask to her face. Her wrist was immobilized in a temporary splint, and every nerve ending was screaming. "Easy," a paramedic said gently. "You took quite a hit. We're taking you to Northwestern Memorial." "I can't afford," Maya started, panic cutting through the fog of pain. "Already taken care of," the paramedic interrupted. "The gentleman you saved, he's handling everything. Don't worry about it." Maya wanted to argue, wanted to say that she didn't need charity, that she could handle her own medical bills even if it meant eating ramen for 3 months. But the pain was too much, and consciousness was slippery, and she let herself slide back into the dark. When she woke again, it was in a hospital room that was far too nice for someone with her insurance. Soft lighting, a comfortable bed, and through the partially open door, she could hear the quiet beeping of expensive machines. How long had she been out? Hours? Days? Her wrist was in a proper cast now, elevated on a pillow. Someone had changed her out of her wet uniform into a hospital gown. Her other arm had an IV line, feeding clear fluid into her veins. The pain had dulled to a manageable ache, which meant they'd given her the good drugs. "You're awake." Maya's head snapped toward the voice, and she immediately regretted the sudden movement. The man in the suit, looking considerably less put together now, his jacket gone and his shirt slightly rumpled, was sitting in a chair beside her bed. He'd been so still she hadn't noticed him. "How long?" Maya's voice came out as a croak. 8 hours, he replied, standing. He moved to pour water from a pitcher on the side table, offering her the cup with a gentleness that seemed at odds with his earlier brusqueness. "You have a fractured wrist, 3 cracked ribs, and a mild concussion. The doctors say you'll make a full recovery, but you need to rest." Maya took the water gratefully, her throat feeling like sandpaper. "You didn't have to stay." "You saved my life," he said, as if that explained everything. "The least I could do was make sure you survived the experience." For the first time, Maya really looked at him. Not as a client to protect, not as just another rich face passing through her shift, but as a person. He looked tired, she realized. Not physically tired. His posture was still perfect, his expression controlled. But there was something in his eyes that spoke of exhaustion that went deeper than lack of sleep. "I'm Maya," she offered. "Maya Chen." "I know." At her surprised look, he added, "Your ID was in your uniform pocket. I'm—" "Minjun Kang," Maya interrupted, the name clicking into place. She'd seen his face on the news, in business magazines that people left behind in the hotel lobby. Heir to the Kang Group. One of the biggest conglomerates in South Korea. His expression shuddered slightly. "Guilty. What are you doing in Chicago?" "Business," he said shortly, then seemed to reconsider. "A merger. Very tedious. Very necessary." He paused, studying her with that same intense focus from before. You didn't know who I was when you pushed me out of the way. It wasn't a question, but Maya answered anyway. I knew you were rich. The suit gave it away. But I would have done the same thing if you'd been wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I believe you, Minjun said quietly, and something shifted in the air between them. Which is unusual. Before Maya could ask what he meant, a nurse bustled in, all efficiency and gentle commands. Time for vitals, time for Maya to rest, time for visitors to leave. Minjun stood, smoothing his shirt with automatic precision. I'll come back tomorrow, he said, and it sounded like a promise. You don't have to, Maya protested, but he was already walking toward the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back at her. I know I don't have to, he said. I want to. And then he was gone, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts and a strange, fluttering feeling in her chest that she absolutely refused to acknowledge. The next day brought more visitors than Maya expected or wanted. Her supervisor from the hotel appeared first, awkward and apologetic, bringing a small bouquet of grocery store flowers and news that Maya's job would be waiting for her when she recovered. His relief that she wasn't planning to sue was palpable. Her mother came next, her face creased with worry that eased only slightly when she saw Maya was alive. Jiwan Chen had immigrated from Taiwan 30 years ago, and life in America had been one long series of struggles. She'd worked herself to exhaustion to raise Maya alone after Maya's father had died, and the guilt of being yet another burden sat heavy on Maya's shoulders. Ma, Maya said in Mandarin, squeezing her mother's hand with her good arm. I'm okay, really. You jumped in front of a truck, Jiwan replied, also in Mandarin, her voice shaking. When they called me, when they told me what you'd done. She broke off, unable to finish the sentence. I'm okay, Maya repeated, wishing she could hug her mother properly. I promise. They talked for a while, Jiwan fussing over Maya's cast and complaining about the hospital food and very carefully not mentioning the medical bills that would be coming. When she finally left, Maya felt the exhaustion pulling at her again. She was half asleep when Min Jun returned. He looked different in daylight filtering through the hospital window. Less severe somehow. He traded yesterday's formal suit for dark jeans and a crisp white button-down, and he carried a bag that smelled suspiciously like real food. The hospital cafeteria is a crime against humanity, he announced, setting the bag on her rolling table. I brought actual sustenance. Maya blinked at him, still processing the fact that he'd come back at all. You didn't have to... Do we need to have this conversation every time I do something? Minjun interrupted, unpacking containers. I brought Korean food, juk, porridge, because I figured your stomach might be sensitive after the pain medication, and kimchi, but mild, not the kind that'll set your mouth on fire. I've never had Korean food, Maya admitted, eyeing the containers warily. Then today is a day of firsts. He settled into the visitor's chair with the ease of someone accustomed to making any space his own. Eat. Doctor's orders. Well, my orders, but I'm paying the doctors, so it amounts to the same thing. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some dignity, but the smell of the porridge made her stomach growl audibly. She hadn't realized how hungry she was until food was in front of her. The hospital breakfast had been inedible, and she'd skipped dinner the night before her shift because she'd been too tired to eat. The porridge was warm, savory, and gentle on her empty stomach. It tasted of home, though it wasn't her home. It was someone else's comfort food, someone else's tradition, but the care in it was universal. Thank you, Maya said quietly, and meant it. They ate in companionable silence for a while. Minjun had brought food for himself too, something more substantial, with meat and vegetables that he ate with practiced chopstick skill. Maya struggled with her left hand, her dominant right still trapped in the cast, until Minjun wordlessly took her container and began feeding her spoonfuls of porridge. I can do it myself, Maya protested, heat rising to her cheeks. Clearly, Minjun said dryly, but there was no mockery in his tone. But you're injured because of me, so let me help. It was such a strange intimacy, being fed by this man she barely knew. His movements were efficient but gentle, and he seemed to know exactly when she needed water, when she needed to pause, like he'd done this before. Do you have siblings? Maya asked suddenly. Minjun's hand froze mid-air, the spoon suspended between them. I did, he said after a long moment. A younger brother. He died when I was 15. I'm sorry, Maya whispered, the words inadequate but sincere. It was a long time ago. Minjun resumed feeding her, but something had shifted. The careful walls he kept around himself had developed a crack, and Maya could see the grief underneath. Hyunwoo was 7, leukemia. We had all the money in the world, access to the best doctors, experimental treatments, everything. But money can't buy miracles. Is that why you're so... Maya trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence. Closed off? Minjun supplied. Emotionally unavailable? My therapist has many theories. I was going to say careful, Maya said gently. You keep yourself separate, like if you don't let people in, you can't lose them. Minjun set down the now empty container, his expression unreadable. You got all that from 2 days of acquaintance? I recognize it because I do the same thing, Maya admitted. My dad died when I was 10. Cancer. We couldn't afford the treatments that might have helped. So, yeah, I get it. They looked at each other, really looked, and Maya felt something settle into place. A recognition. Two people shaped by loss, carrying grief in different ways, but understanding it all the same. What's in your pocket? Maya asked suddenly, remembering something. When we fell, when you were on the ground, something fell out of your jacket. A photo, I think. Your security picked it up before I could see. Minjun went very still. How did you... I noticed things, Maya said. Part of the security training. Is it your brother? For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, slowly, Minjun reached into his jeans pocket and pulled out a worn photograph, its edges soft with handling. He held it out to Maya. The photo showed 2 boys on a beach somewhere. The older one, Minjun, maybe 14, was laughing, his arm around a smaller boy with the same sharp features and bright smile. They were building a sandcastle, their hands muddy, their expressions full of uncomplicated joy. We took this 6 months before he got sick, Minjun said quietly. Jeju Island. It was the last trip we took as a family before everything changed. I carry it everywhere. A reminder that happiness is temporary, that everyone leaves eventually one way or another. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that wasn't true, that love was worth the risk of loss. But she understood his logic because she lived it too. She'd kept herself deliberately alone, working too much to form connections, too exhausted for relationships, too scared to let anyone close enough to hurt her. He looks like trouble, Maya said instead, her finger gently tracing the younger boy's face. The good kind? He was, Minjun agreed, and his voice was thick with emotion he didn't bother to hide. He wanted to be a doctor. Said he was going to cure cancer so no other kids had to go through what he did. He was 7 years old and planning to save the world. I bet he would have, Maya whispered. They sat in silence, the photograph between them like a bridge. 2 strangers connected by loss, by a split-second decision on a rainy street, by something neither of them could quite name yet. Minjun came back every day for a week. He brought food, different dishes each time, a culinary tour of Korean cuisine delivered to Maya's hospital room. He brought books when she complained of boredom, fashion magazines and mystery novels, and a biography of Marie Curie. He brought fresh flowers when the grocery store bouquet from her supervisor wilted. He also brought conversation. They talked about everything and nothing, Maya's childhood in Chicago, Minjun's privileged but isolated upbringing in Seoul, favorite movies, worst jobs, the peculiar exhaustion of living in a world that demanded constant performance. Minjun was funny, Maya discovered, with a dry wit that caught her off guard and made her laugh until her ribs ached. Stop, she gasped one afternoon, holding her sides. Stop making me laugh. It hurts. Then stop asking me about the disasters of my early 20s, Minjun replied, but he was smiling too, genuine and unguarded in a way that Maya suspected few people ever got to see. I'm still recovering from the trauma of that mullet phase. You did not have a mullet. I absolutely did. For 6 months in college, I was convinced I was a rock star. My father nearly disowned me. Show me a picture, Maya demanded. Absolutely not. Some secrets die with me. The nurses started calling Min-jun Maya's boyfriend, which both of them immediately corrected, but which neither of them seemed to mind as much as they should. The truth was more complicated than that, though. This wasn't romance exactly. It was something stranger and more fragile. Two people who'd been alone for so long they'd forgotten how to let someone in, cautiously building a connection in the strange liminal space of a hospital room. On the 5th day, Maya's doctor cleared her for discharge. She'd need physical therapy for her wrist, follow-up appointments for her ribs, but she could go home. Home to her cramped studio apartment, her 2 jobs, her carefully maintained solitude. Min-jun was there when the nurse delivered the news. He'd been reading to Maya from one of the books he'd brought, a Korean novel translated to English, something about a woman who could see the future in her dreams. His voice was soothing, and Maya had been drifting in that peaceful space between waking and sleep. "That's wonderful news," Min-jun said to the nurse, his tone carefully neutral. Then, to Maya, "I'll arrange for a car to take you home." "I can take the bus," Maya protested automatically. "With a broken wrist and cracked ribs? Don't be ridiculous." Min-jun was already pulling out his phone, texting someone. "My driver will pick you up at 3. That gives you time to say goodbye to the nursing staff you've been charming all week." "Min-jun? Maya?" He looked at her directly, and his expression was serious. "Let me do this. Please." There was something in his voice that made her pause. Not pity, not obligation, but something else. Something that felt almost like fear. "Okay," she said softly. "Thank you." He nodded, visibly relaxing. "I'll see you tomorrow." "You don't have to," Maya said, the protest automatic even though she already knew how he'd respond. "I know I don't have to," Min-jun replied, echoing his words from that first night. "I want to." But this time, Maya noticed the uncertainty underneath. Like he was asking a question he didn't quite know how to voice. Maya's apartment was exactly as she'd left it, a studio that was barely larger than her hospital room, with a kitchenette that consisted of a hot plate and a mini fridge, a futon that served as both couch and bed, and a bathroom so small she had to turn sideways to shower. The walls were thin enough that she could hear her neighbor's television, and the radiator clanked and hissed but never quite produced enough heat. Min-jun's driver, a polite older Korean man named Mr. Airit, Kim, had helped her upstairs, carrying the bag of belongings from the hospital while Maya navigated the stairs one-handed. When they reached her door, she could see Mr. Kim trying very hard not to react to the state of the building, the peeling paint in the hallway, the suspicious stain on the carpet. "Thank you for your help," Maya said, taking the bag. "I can manage from here." Mr. Kim hesitated, clearly torn between protocol and concern. "Ms. Chen, if you need anything." "I'm fine," Maya assured him. "Really, thank you." After he left, Maya locked the door and leaned against it, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. The hospital had been a strange bubble, separate from real life. Now she was back, and reality was waiting. Her phone buzzed, a text from her hotel supervisor. "Take the time you need. Don't rush back." Another text from the cleaning company. "Let us know when you're ready to return." And finally, from a number she didn't recognize. "You made it home safely? MJ." Maya smiled despite herself. She'd given Min-jun her number the day before, for emergencies, though what kind of emergency would require a billionaire to call a security guard she didn't know. "Home and alive," she texted back. "Thanks again for everything." The response came quickly. "Get some rest. I'll check in tomorrow." Maya should have been annoyed by the presumption. Instead, she found it comforting. Someone was keeping track of her. Someone cared whether she was okay, and after so long being on her own, that felt like a gift. She managed to change into comfortable clothes one-handed, made herself a cup of instant ramen, all she could manage with the cast, and settled onto her futon. Tomorrow she'd figure out how to manage work, medical bills, life. Tonight, she'd just exist. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a photo from Min-jun, him in his 20s. And yes, he absolutely had a mullet, paired with a leather jacket and the most ridiculous sunglasses Maya had ever seen. "You promised this secret would die with you," she texted, laughing despite her aching ribs. "I changed my mind. Some things are too good not to share. You look like you belonged in a bad 90s boy band. I'll have you know that I was very cool." "Sure you were. Sleep well, Maya. That's an order from your favorite chaebol. Good night, mullet boy." Maya fell asleep with her phone in her hand and a smile on her face, and for the first time in years, the loneliness didn't feel quite so heavy. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm that Maya simultaneously cherished and feared. Min-jun came by her apartment most evenings, always with some excuse. He was in the neighborhood, he'd picked up too much food and needed someone to help eat it, he was bored and wanted company. Maya accepted these transparent excuses because she wanted to see him as much as he apparently wanted to see her. They fell into patterns. Min-jun would bring dinner, sometimes Korean, sometimes Thai, once memorably authentic Chicago deep dish pizza that he'd proclaimed an architectural achievement in cheese. They'd eat on Maya's futon, watching terrible reality TV on her ancient laptop, arguing about which contestants were playing the game and which were just there for screen time. Min-jun was surprisingly invested in The Bachelor, with strong opinions about who deserved the final rose. Maya discovered he had a weakness for cooking shows, watching with the intensity of someone studying for an exam as chefs competed to make the perfect souffle. "You could have any personal chef in the world," Maya observed one night. "Why do you care about cooking?" "Because they can't," Min-jun said simply. "These people are creating something with their own hands, pouring themselves into it. Money can buy the ingredients, but it can't buy passion." It was such an unexpectedly poetic answer that Maya found herself staring at him. In the blue glow of the laptop screen, Min-jun looked younger, less guarded, and she realized with a jolt that she'd started memorizing his expressions. The way his eyes crinkled slightly when he was about to laugh. The small line between his eyebrows when he was thinking. The unconscious way he touched the photograph in his pocket when conversation turned melancholy. "What?" Min-jun asked, catching her staring. "Nothing," Maya lied. "Just wondering why a billionaire is so invested in watching a housewife from Michigan make cupcakes." "Because she's good at it," Min-jun replied. "And she's happy. That's rare." The vulnerability in his voice made Maya's chest tight. She wanted to reach out, to touch his hand, to offer some comfort for wounds she could see but didn't fully understand. But she was scared of crossing a line, of reading too much into their friendship, of wanting something she had no right to want. Instead, she bumped her shoulder against his. "You're not so bad yourself for a guy with a tragic mullet past." "I will never live that down, will I?" "Never," Maya confirmed cheerfully. "I'm considering getting it printed on a t-shirt." "You wouldn't dare." "Try me." Min-jun's laughter was bright and genuine, and Maya tucked the sound away like a treasure. But not everything was light. Maya's medical bills started arriving, page after page of incomprehensible codes and terrifying numbers. Even with her hospital-provided insurance and Min-jun paying the initial emergency costs, there were follow-ups, therapy appointments, medication. The numbers climbed higher and higher. Maya tried to hide them when Min-jun came over, stuffing the envelopes in a drawer. But he was observant, had been trained his whole life to notice details, and he saw the stress she tried to conceal. "Let me help," he said one evening. Not quite a question. "No," Maya replied immediately, automatic. "Absolutely not." "Maya!" "I said no." She stood up, agitation making her restless despite her still healing ribs. "You've already done too much. The hospital bills, the food, your time. I can't take anything else from you." "You're not taking," Min-jun said, rising to face her. "I'm offering, there's a difference. It's charity. It's repayment." His voice was sharp now, frustration bleeding through his usually calm exterior. "You saved my life, Maya. You broke your wrist and 3 ribs saving my life. The least I can do is help with the financial consequences of your heroism." "I didn't do it for payment," Maya snapped back. I did it because it was right, because you're a human being who deserved not to get hit by a truck. I don't want your money, Minjun. That's not... She broke off, struggling to articulate what she felt. That's not why we're friends. The word friends hung in the air between them, fragile and important. I know that, Minjun said quietly. He stepped closer, and Maya could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of something he'd been carrying. But Maya, do you have any idea how rare you are? How many people in my life want something from me? Everyone wants an investment, a connection, a job, a favor. But you won't even let me pay your medical bills after you literally jumped in front of a car for me. That's different. It's not. Minjun's hands clenched at his sides, and Maya realized he was actually angry. For once in my life, I found someone who sees me as just me. Not my name, not my company, not what I can do for them, just Minjun. And I can't even do this one simple thing to help you without you throwing it back in my face. His words hit Maya like a physical blow. She'd been so focused on protecting her pride, on not being another person who wanted something from him, that she'd failed to see how much her refusal hurt him. I'm sorry, she said, her voice small. I didn't realize... I know, Minjun interrupted, the anger draining from his voice. That's what makes you Maya. He ran a hand through his hair, disheveling the perfect style. I'm not used to people refusing money. It's unsettling. Despite everything, Maya felt a laugh bubble up. Welcome to the perspective of us regular folks. We're very annoying about accepting help. Clearly, Minjun said dryly, but he was almost smiling. Can we compromise? Let me set up a payment plan for you. Not paying them directly, just managing them. Making sure they're reasonable, negotiating the costs down. Would that be acceptable to your stubborn pride? Maya wanted to refuse again, but she could see the genuine desire to help in his eyes. And if she was being honest with herself, the medical bills terrified her. The numbers kept climbing, and she had no idea how she'd ever pay them all. Okay, she said finally. But I pay them back, every cent. I don't care how long it takes. Deal, Minjun agreed, though Maya suspected he had no intention of actually collecting. But only if you let me continue bringing dinner. I've gotten used to having someone to share meals with. That I can agree to, Maya said, especially if you keep bringing that spicy pork. The jayuk bokiam? Done. I'll bring extra next time. The tension broken, they settled back onto the futon. But something had shifted. Maya let herself lean against Minjun's shoulder, and he didn't pull away. His arm came around her carefully, mindful of her ribs, and they sat like that while some celebrity chef on the laptop created a chocolate masterpiece that would later collapse spectacularly. Thank you, Maya whispered. For what? For being patient with me. For understanding why I needed to say no. Minjun's arm tightened slightly around her. Thank you for eventually saying yes, and for being someone worth knowing. Maya didn't trust herself to speak. Instead, she burrowed a little closer, and Minjun's thumb began tracing absent patterns on her shoulder, and the small apartment suddenly felt like the warmest place in the world. 2 months after the accident, Minjun's business in Chicago concluded. He'd successfully negotiated his merger, acquired the company he'd been targeting, and arranged for all the tedious legal details that would keep lawyers busy for years. His obligations were complete. It was time to return to Seoul. He told Maya over dinner at an actual restaurant, their first time out together since the hospital. Minjun had insisted on celebrating Maya's return to work, part-time, doctor's orders, and he'd taken her to a small Korean place in the city's Lincoln Square neighborhood, family-owned and authentic. I leave next week, he said, not quite meeting her eyes. Wednesday morning. There's a board meeting in Seoul the following day that I need to attend. Maya's chopsticks froze midway to her mouth. She'd known this was coming, had known from the first day that Minjun's time in Chicago was temporary, but knowing and accepting were two different things. That's good, she managed, her voice steady despite the sudden hollow feeling in her chest. I'm sure your father will be glad to have you back. My father is glad to have the merger complete, Minjun corrected. My presence is secondary to the quarterly profits. He said it matter-of-factly, without bitterness, and that somehow made it worse. What about you? Maya asked. Are you glad to be going back? Min-jun set down his own chopsticks, finally looking at her directly. I don't know, he admitted. Seoul is home, but it's also complicated. The company, my father's expectations, the weight of being the heir to everything. Here, for a few months, I got to be just Min-jun. I could eat bad pizza and watch terrible TV and laugh at cooking shows without wondering what it meant for stock prices or shareholder confidence. You can still do those things in Seoul, Maya said, though her heart wasn't in the encouragement. Can I? Min-jun's smile was sad. There's no one there who sees me the way you do. No one I can be myself around. The weight of his words settled between them. Maya wanted to say something profound, something that would make this easier, but what could she possibly offer? She was a security guard with a broken wrist and medical debt. He was a billionaire heir with responsibilities that spanned continents. Their worlds had overlapped for a brief, strange moment, but now reality was reasserting itself. I'll miss you, Maya said simply, because it was true, and because she owed him honesty. Come with me, Min-jun blurted out, and then looked as surprised as Maya felt. To Seoul, come with me. Min-jun, I know it sounds crazy, he continued, words tumbling out faster now. I know we've only known each other for 2 months, and I know it's insane to ask you to uproot your entire life. But Maya, I don't want to say goodbye to you. I'm not ready for this to be over. Maya's heart was hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. My life is here. My mother, my apartment, my jobs. I could get you a job, Min-jun said eagerly. Something better than hotel security, something that uses your skills. I could help your mother too, make sure she has everything she needs. You'd have your own apartment, complete independence. I'm not asking you to be dependent on me, just near me. It was a fantasy, and they both knew it. Maya tried to imagine herself in Seoul, navigating a foreign country where she didn't speak the language, completely reliant on Min-jun's goodwill. What happened when he got tired of her? When the novelty wore off and he realized she didn't fit in his world? I can't, Maya said, and watched something crumble in Min-jun's expression. I'm sorry, but I can't just leave everything I know. My mother needs me. I have responsibilities here. Right, Min-jun said, his voice hollow. Of course. I shouldn't have asked. Min-jun, it's fine. He was already pulling out his wallet, laying cash on the table for their unfinished meal. I need to go. Packing to do, calls to make. I'll text you before I leave. He was gone before Maya could formulate a response, before she could explain that it wasn't that she didn't want to go with him, but that she was terrified of wanting it too much. Maya sat alone in the restaurant, staring at her half-eaten bibimbap, and wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Min-jun didn't text. Wednesday came and went, and Maya found herself compulsively checking her phone, hoping for a message that never arrived. She told herself it was better this way, a clean break. They'd had a strange, intense friendship born of extraordinary circumstances, and now it was over. Life returning to normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. Her apartment felt emptier. Food tasted like ash. She went through the motions at work, grateful the hotel was busy enough that she could lose herself in the routine of checking IDs and managing the occasional drunk guest. At night, she'd lie on her futon and remember Min-jun's laugh, the weight of his arm around her shoulders, the way he'd made her life feel less lonely. Her mother noticed. Ji-won had met Min-jun twice, had seen the way her daughter's face lit up when talking about him, and she was blunt in her assessment. You're in love with him, she said over tea in Maya's apartment, 2 weeks after Min-jun's departure. I barely knew him, Maya protested weakly. Time has nothing to do with it, Ji-won replied. You love him, and you let him go. He's a billionaire, Ma. I'm a security guard. We live in different worlds. Your father was a janitor when I met him, Ji-won said quietly. My parents wanted me to marry someone with a degree, someone with prospects. But I loved your father, and I chose him anyway. We had 15 years together before the cancer took him. 15 years of hard work and tight budgets and struggles. But I've never regretted it, not for 1 second. It's not the same. It's exactly the same, her mother interrupted. Love is love. Money doesn't change that. The question is whether you're brave enough to reach for it. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to explain all the logical reasons why she and Minjun could never work. But sitting in her empty apartment, missing someone who'd been in her life for such a short time, but had left such a profound mark, she couldn't find the words. 3 weeks after Minjun left, a package arrived at Maya's apartment. No return address, but she knew immediately who'd sent it. Inside was a small box containing a delicate silver bracelet, Korean characters etched on the inside. Maya pulled out her phone, using Google Translate to decipher the inscription. Courage lives in unexpected places. There was also a note, Minjun's handwriting sharp and precise. Maya. I've been thinking about what you said at the restaurant. You're right that you have responsibilities, that you can't just leave your life behind. I was selfish to ask. But I want you to know something. The 2 months I spent with you were the happiest I've been since Hyunwoo died. You gave me something I didn't know I was missing, not romance, not companionship, but the simple gift of being seen as human. Just Minjun. Not the heir, not the businessman, not the name. Just me. I don't know what we were to each other. Friends doesn't seem like enough, but anything more feels presumptuous. All I know is that you changed me, and I will carry that forward. The bracelet belonged to my mother. She gave it to me before she died, told me to give it to someone who made me feel brave. You jumped in front of a truck without hesitation. You're the bravest person I've ever met. I hope when you wear this, you remember that. Take care of yourself, Maya Chen. Thank you for saving me, not just my life, but something deeper. MJ. Maya read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she put on the bracelet, feeling the cool weight of the silver against her wrist, and made a decision that would change everything. She called her supervisor at the hotel first. I need to request a leave of absence. 3 weeks, maybe a month. I'll make up the shifts when I get back, I promise. Then she called her mother. Ma, I need a favor. It's going to sound crazy, but I need you to trust me. Finally, she opened her laptop and booked a ticket she couldn't afford to a country she'd never visited, taking a leap of faith that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. Maya Chen, who'd spent her whole life playing it safe, was about to do something monumentally reckless. She was going to Seoul. The flight to Seoul was 14 hours of anxiety and second-guessing. Maya had never been on a plane before, couldn't afford it, and the experience of international travel was overwhelming. Everything was in Korean, from the safety announcements to the meal options. The flight attendants were patient with her halting attempts to communicate, and the passenger beside her, an elderly Korean woman, helped translate when Maya got stuck. First time to Korea? The woman asked in accented but clear English. First time anywhere, Maya admitted. Is it always this nerve-wracking? Only when it matters, the woman said with a knowing smile. You go to see someone special? Something like that, Maya replied, not ready to explain the full story. Then the fear is good. It means you care. You'll be fine. Maya hoped she was right. Incheon Airport was massive, gleaming, and utterly disorienting. Maya followed signs she couldn't read and crowds she couldn't understand, armed only with the address of Minjun's company that she'd found online and a translation app on her phone that worked approximately 60% of the time. Getting a taxi was an adventure. Getting the taxi driver to understand where she wanted to go was an odyssey. But eventually, through a combination of showing him the address on her phone, desperate hand gestures, and what she hoped was a universally understood expression of, "Please, I'm lost and scared," the driver nodded and pulled into traffic. Seoul rushed past the window, a city of vertical lines and neon, traditional temples nestled between glass skyscrapers, streets that seemed to pulse with life. Maya pressed her face to the glass, trying to take it all in. This was Min Jun's home, the place that had shaped him, and she wanted to understand it. Kang Group headquarters was impossible to miss. A gleaming tower in Gangnam, 50 stories of steel and glass that screamed wealth and power. Maya paid the taxi driver, another confusion of currency and calculation that left her hoping she hadn't just tipped him $300, and stood on the sidewalk staring up at the building. What was she doing? Min-jun was probably in a board meeting. He probably had a secretary, assistants, layers of protection between himself and random Americans who showed up unannounced. This was insane. She should turn around, get back on a plane, pretend this never happened. But she was wearing his mother's bracelet, and she'd come 7,000 miles. Maya squared her shoulders and walked into the lobby. The lobby was all marble and modern art, with a security desk manned by two guards who looked considerably more professional than Maya ever had at the Grand Lux. She approached them, phone in hand, pulling up the translation app. "I'm here to see Min-jun Kang," she said, the app translating her words into Korean. "My name is Maya Chen." The guards exchanged glances. One of them responded in rapid Korean that the app barely caught. Something about appointments, something about scheduling. "I don't have an appointment," Maya said, feeling her courage waver. "But he knows me. If you could just tell him I'm here." "Ms. Chen?" Maya spun around. A woman in an impeccable suit was walking toward her, her expression carefully neutral. She spoke perfect English with a British accent. "I'm Jennifer Park, executive assistant to Mr. Kang. He mentioned you might come by." Hope flared in Maya's chest. "He did?" "He left instructions," Jennifer said, which wasn't quite the same thing. "If you'll follow me, please." Maya followed Jennifer into an elevator with mirrored walls that reflected her exhaustion. She looked terrible, rumpled from the flight, her hair a mess, wearing jeans and a sweater that suddenly felt painfully inadequate in this temple of business luxury. They rode up in silence. Maya tried to prepare what she'd say. "I couldn't stop thinking about you. I was scared, but I came anyway. I don't know what this is, but I want to find out." It all sounded ridiculous in her head. The elevator doors opened directly into an executive suite that took Maya's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul, the city spreading out like a living map. The furniture was modern and expensive, the art on the walls probably worth more than Maya's entire apartment building. And standing at the window, his back to the door, was Min-jun. He turned when he heard the elevator, and Maya watched his expression cycle through shock, disbelief, and something that looked almost like hope before settling into careful neutrality. "Maya," he said, and her name and his voice was everything she'd been missing. "What are you doing here?" "I got your letter," Maya said, her planned speech evaporating. "And your bracelet. And I've been miserable for 3 weeks, and my mother told me I was an idiot for letting you go, and I couldn't stop thinking about what you said about me making you happy, because Min-jun, you made me happy too. Happier than I've been since my dad died. And I know I said I couldn't come to Seoul, but I realized that was fear talking. I was scared of wanting something I thought I couldn't have. Scared of being just another person who wants something from you." She took a breath, her words tumbling out faster now. "But the thing is, I do want something from you. I want more terrible TV and good food and conversations that go until 3 in the morning. I want to see you smile the way you smile when you think no one's watching. I want to know what makes you laugh and what keeps you up at night and what your favorite childhood memory is. I want everything, and I'm terrified, but I'm here because I think maybe you want those things too." The question hung in the air. Min-jun was staring at her like she'd appeared out of thin air, which, to be fair, she sort of had. "You flew to Seoul," he said finally, his voice rough. "You hate flying. You told me you'd never been on a plane." "I hate a lot of things less than I hated not seeing you," Maya replied. "Turns out I'm braver than I thought. Something about a bracelet that says so." Min-jun moved then, crossing the space between them in 3 long strides. "You're wearing it." "Haven't taken it off since it arrived," Maya said, holding up her wrist. The silver caught the light, the Korean characters glinting. "Do you know what it says?" Min-jun asked, and he was close enough now that Maya could see the emotion he wasn't quite managing to contain. "Google Translate said, 'Courage lives in unexpected places.' It's a quote from my mother's favorite book," Min-jun said softly. "She used to say that the bravest thing we can do is love someone fully, knowing we might lose them. That courage isn't the absence of fear, It's choosing love despite the fear. She sounds like she was wise, Maya whispered. She was. Minjun's hands came up to cup Maya's face, gentle and careful. And she would have loved you. My stubborn, brave, impossible Maya Chen who jumped in front of a truck and then flew across the world even though she was terrified. I'm still terrified, Maya admitted. I don't speak Korean. I don't know how to navigate this city. I have no idea how to fit into your world. But I want to try, if you want me to. Want you to? Minjun laughed, and it was bright with relief and joy. Maya, I've been miserable. I tried to pretend I was fine, that I could just go back to my life like you hadn't changed everything. But I can't. I don't want to. You asked me if I was glad to be going back to Seoul, and I told you I didn't know. But now? With you here? Now I know. I'm glad you're here with me. That's all that matters. So what do we do? Maya asked, her hands coming up to rest on his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath her palms. We figure it out, Minjun said simply. Together. One day at a time. I'll teach you Korean. You'll teach me to be normal. We'll eat too much food and watch too much bad TV and see what happens. That simple? That's simple, Minjun confirmed. Then, with a smile that was pure mischief, though I should warn you, my apartment is much nicer than yours. You're going to have very high standards after this. Maya laughed, the sound bubbling up from a place of pure happiness she hadn't accessed in years. I think I can handle it. Good, Minjun said, and then he was kissing her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Maya kissed him back, feeling the bracelet on her wrist and the steady beat of his heart beneath her hands, and thought that her mother had been right. Courage did live in unexpected places. Sometimes it looked like jumping in front of a truck. Sometimes it looked like boarding a plane despite your fears. Sometimes it looked like two people from different worlds choosing to build a bridge between them. And sometimes, courage looked like finally admitting you were in love. 6 months later, Maya stood in that same executive suite, looking out at Seoul with very different eyes. She'd learned enough Korean to navigate the subway and order food. She'd found a job as head of security at one of Kang Group's smaller subsidiaries, work she was actually good at, and that didn't make her feel like charity. She'd convinced Minjun to visit her mother in Chicago twice and watch them bond over terrible cooking shows and stories of Maya's childhood. She'd also met Minjun's father, a meeting that had been stiff and awkward, the elder Mr. Kang clearly unsure what to make of the American security guard his son had fallen for. But he'd been polite, and Minjun's grip on her hand throughout dinner had told her everything she needed to know about whose opinion mattered more. Minjun came up behind her now, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. It was early, before work officially started, and these quiet morning moments were their favorite. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "That night," Maya said. "The truck. If you'd been standing 3 feet to the left, I wouldn't have reached you in time." "But I wasn't," Minjun reminded her, pressing a kiss to her temple. "And you did. You saved me, Maya. Not just my life. You saved me from a life where I was just going through the motions. You gave me something to care about." "You saved me too," Maya replied, turning in his arms to face him. "I was so afraid of wanting anything more than survival. You taught me I could have more, that I deserved more." "We're quite the pair," Minjun said with a smile. "Two broken people who found each other by accident." "Not accident," Maya corrected. "Fate. Your mother's bracelet says courage lives in unexpected places. I think love does too." "Probably why they go together so well," Minjun agreed. Then, with the slightly nervous energy that Maya had learned, meant he was about to say something important. "Speaking of which, I have something for you." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Not a ring box, something different. Maya opened it to find a key on a simple chain. "It's to my apartment," Minjun explained. "I know you have your own place, and I'm not asking you to give that up, but I want you to have the option, to come and go, to fill my space with your presence, to make it ours, not just mine." Maya looked at the key, thinking about all the keys she'd held in her life. Keys to her mother's house, to her studio apartment, to the hotel's security office. This one felt different. This one felt like a beginning. On one condition, she said. We get a couch that's actually comfortable. That designer thing you have is beautiful, but I can't fall asleep on it without getting a crick in my neck. Minjun's laugh was bright and full. Deal. We'll go furniture shopping this weekend. You can pick out whatever monstrosity you want. Even a recliner? Even a recliner, he confirmed, mock suffering in his voice. My interior designer will cry, but your comfort is worth her tears. Maya tucked the key into her pocket, next to her phone and the small photo she now carried, the one of Minjun and Hyunwoo on the beach. Minjun had given it to her months ago, saying his brother would have liked her. Maya had cried, and Minjun had held her, and they'd talked late into the night about the people they'd lost and the life they were building together. I love you, Maya said simply, because it was true, and because she'd learned from Minjun that the brave thing was to say it out loud. I love you too, Minjun replied, pulling her close. My brave, impossible Maya Chen, who changed my entire life in the space of 3 seconds. Best 3 seconds ever, Maya said, and kissed him as the sun rose over Seoul, painting the city in shades of gold and promise. They still had so much to figure out, visas and logistics, long-term plans and short-term challenges. Maya's Korean was improving, but still far from fluent. Minjun was still learning how to balance his company responsibilities with his personal life. They argued sometimes, usually about Minjun's tendency to throw money at problems and Maya's stubborn independence. But they were figuring it out together. One day at a time, one meal at a time, one terrible TV show at a time. And in Minjun's pocket, next to his brother's photo, he now carried a new picture, one Jennifer had snapped of him and Maya in this same office, looking out at Seoul together, her hand in his and matching smiles on their faces. Two people who'd been alone for so long they'd forgotten what it felt like to be found. Two people who'd learned that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is let someone in, even when, especially when, you're terrified of losing them. Maya had jumped in front of a truck to save Minjun's life. But what she'd found in his pocket that day, a photograph of a lost boy, a window into Minjun's carefully guarded heart, had been the beginning of something far more profound. Not just saving a life, but learning how to truly live one. Courage, as Minjun's mother had written, lives in unexpected places. In the decision to push someone out of harm's way. In a photograph carried for comfort. In a plane ticket bought on faith. In a key offered and accepted. In 2 words spoken aloud despite the fear. I love you. And for Maya Chen and Minjun Kang, that courage had led them here, to a high-rise office in Seoul, to a love neither had been looking for but both desperately needed, to a future they would build together, one brave choice at a time. The story of a poor guard and a billionaire tycoon might have started with an accident, a truck, and a split-second decision. But it became something far more beautiful, a testament to the truth that love doesn't care about bank accounts or background, that connection can happen in the space between heartbeats, and that sometimes the best things in life come from the moments we stop playing it safe and choose, despite our fear, to be brave. What did you think of Maya and Minjun's story? Did Maya make the right choice in following her heart to Seoul? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you rate this story from 0 to 10? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more inspiring stories about love, courage, and second chances. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.